Hello there. I'm JP.
Oh, hello there. I'm WH Park, recovering from talking 2 hours with Maddie Edwards.
I was going to say, like, if you're wondering why WH's voice is not up to its usual pristine standards, then he's a two hours in the ringer with Matty, talking all manner of libelous things.
Like, why do you like Edge so much? What's wrong with wrestling for points? Why do you like Judy Bagwell on a pole matches more than a real athletic tournament? I don't know. Things like that.
I can imagine it. It's the wrestling for points stuff. And then, like, and then it would be like the defense of Vince Russo and the like that manages to come into it. But no, hopefully, I'm looking forward to listening to that one. I really am.
I will say it was I had a very fun conversation with Maddie. It was nice. It wasn't as contrarian as maybe people might think, you know.
No,
so
he's got like quite an eclectic taste. In the same way, it's like kind of a lot of us, where we have like our own kind of eclectic taste, and then we all like wrestling, and then every once in a while we kind of look at it and go, why do we like this again?
Yeah.
Like, and then we remember why we like it on occasion. And I think it's this. It's the same thing with some of the like bad Russo stuff. It's like, why do I like it? For some reason it connects, but I would never recommend you watch the one WCW DVD release for Japan. It's covering 4 months of Russo era stuff called Millionaires Club versus New Blood.
Oh, you talked about that, I think, on a
horrible
show. Yeah.
Horrible. That was, it felt like 3.5 hours. But
if anybody wants to hear me call Tommy Dreamer a fat bastard, yeah, that's definitely a show you should listen to.
Yeah. I look forward to listening to that. Obviously, though, going into the reason why we're here today, we're going into episode 2 of the Mandalorian, and this one helpfully titled, or chapter 18, depending on your viewpoint, The Mines of Mandalore. So as soon as you realise the title,
proper Doctor Who type of title, by the way.
Yes, it is, isn't it? It has
sounds like an episode of Doctor Who, and I'm gonna talk about this monster, like not the Mythosaur, this cyborg. We get to it. Like, it gave me Doctor Who villain vibes. This thing.
Yeah, I had I had kind of stuff like we've mentioned it before, like Space Hunters Adventures of the Forbidden Zone and Michael Ironside in that, but just drilled down into an eye.
Was it? Which one was Robert Urich in? Is that Ice Pirates?
That's Ice Pirates. Bloody hell. I've not thought about that. Is that the one where they all age at one point? Really?
I forget. I know one of them was in fucking 3D or something. You know,
it was. It's the kind of film I remember seeing out in the video store, and I don't know if you had like parents like
no,
mine.
I saw that in the theater, dude.
Did you?
I saw Space Hunter in theater. I saw Ice Pirates theater. I saw fucking Megaforce. You remember Megaforce?
My God! I mean, again, haven't heard about that in a long. Who took you? Your dad?
Oh, I went by myself. Maybe me and my brother went. You know what I mean? Like, we just went. You know, my parents were too big. Like, yeah, you guys are enough. You're like over the you guys.
Yeah.
You know,
because
it wasn't that flip. It was just like me, so it was fine. The mall. So.
Oh, because when we went to the video store as kids, my dad had no idea.
You cut out there for a sec. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My dad, when he took us to the video store, he had no idea about rating system and the 15s and 18s. He just sort of had this very much Irish Catholic mentality of, if there was any nudity in it, then no. But apart from that, everything else is fair game. So watching Q the Winged Serpent was like a no, because on the front cover of it, not only do you have a dragon, but you had like a kind of scantily clad lady on the video cover for that. Larry Cohen, isn't it? He's the king of schlock.
I enjoyed so many sex comedies in the 80s thanks to the video store that I would never have watched otherwise. And cannot believe they rented it to me, you know, a scant 14-year-old getting, you know, Porky's, fucking My Private Tutor, like all the good shit. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God, Porkies.
And
Oh, that's
believe it or not, My Private Tutor is not actually a porn film. It's actually a sex comedy from the 80s. You think it's a porn, but it wasn't.
it sounds like it should be these days, but then these days I think titles and that kind of go completely out of the window.
The 80s were a prime time for like exploitive like sex comedy set in like, you know, spring break and, you know, like people, kids going, you know, teenagers going off to college and shit like that. Great times. We need a resurgence of that genre back into 2023.
And I think, you know what? I would argue, in terms of The Mandalorian, that we have something that kind of, even parts of this was kind of quite nicely schlocky, is what I would say.
Oh, yeah.
There was stuff in it that felt like this would have belonged, like, in the first, like, in A New Hope. This wouldn't have gone out of place, particularly with, like, the Morlock type characters that we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, in summary for this one, I mean, it's the Mines of Mandalore. He's going back to Mandalore. I don't know if you wanted to start off with just sort of explaining, like, I suppose, in terms of the significance of going back to Mandalore. I mean, we've heard about it within the show.
Well, I think for us as viewers, I think we should talk about it two ways. One, first of all, we just got rid of like the big quest. He just went straight to Mandalore. Yeah. We didn't do any side quests. He went straight to Mandalore. He bathed in the waters. So that's all done. So now we can move on. So for us,
has he got evidence he did that?
That surprised me because I thought he was going to go on the IG-11 memory chip thing more like right away, and then he's going to build up to Mines of Mandalore. No, here's the thing. I think, you know, like season 2, we didn't know what's going to happen at the end. We didn't know Luke Skywalker was going to show up. I think they have something so like big planned for the season finale of this that they probably have not showed any. They definitely have not showed any of it in the trailers or the teasers. So I think they're saving something fucking massive. Like there's like things in the trailers of like the pirates attacking Navarro and the Mandalorians fighting them. I don't think that. I would be surprised if that's actually the big thing at the end. If that's like the season finale, then that's not what's the, you know, like kind of the surprise. That's not going to be the surprise. There's going to be something they're saving that we haven't seen yet. So I'm excited, like, because now what angle do we go like from this week's episode? Like, I have no idea, and I'm excited to watch it. You know, like it's going to be. I get excited for like when Wednesday morning comes along and I wake up a little bit early to watch it before I go to work.
I was asked that today by the youngest in the house, Harry. He was like, "Is new Mandalorian on yet?" As I was in the rewatch for this, so he was just like, "New one out," and it's like, "Got to wait till Wednesday for it." But I'm kind of like, by the end of this, I mean, I didn't quite see this episode coming in particularly the way it was. Also, I'd like to say a shout out for Rachel Morrison, who is primarily like a cinematographer in terms of, she was like the director of photography for like Black Panther, Fruitvale Station, Mudbound, Dope.
So Ryan Coogler's go-to cinematographer.
Yeah. And here, I think, I mean, the reason I mention it is because this has like very much a kind of body horror vibe to it.
Oh,
I was reminded. Yeah, I mean, there's various kind of, I mean, apart from the initially thinking, is this General Grievous in some like kind of weird, I was just like, no, that's not it. But then I started to go to things like mentioned earlier on, Space Hunter, and think, you know, get kind of vibes of Death Machine, a Stephen Norrington low budget British film that I'm sure you've seen.
There's that one. Oh fuck! What? Hardware? You ever seen Hardware?
Oh, I've seen Hardware. Richard Stanley.
Yeah. Richard Stanley's Hardware.
I love that with Dylan. Is it? Oh, what's his name? Dylan McDermott.
Oh, he's like the star. I can't remember. I just know Richard Stanley.
Lemmy's in it as a taxi driver.
Yeah, he got fucked by Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer on the set of The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yes, he did.
But then he came back with that Nick Cage H.P. Lovecraft cosmic horror movie.
Was that him?
Yeah, that was Richard Stanley.
I did. There must have been the first one in
The Colors of something. I forget the title.
Oh, okay. So it falls into the canon of recent Nicolas Cage, where it can be very sort of up and down. It's like he was making schlock, and some of it would be quite good, and then some of it would be like just absolute trash. But he had to pay a massive tax bill.
Good. This one is a side of like something good Nicolas Cage has done.
Well, but Richard Stanley, you had me at that.
Yeah, but back to your original question, the significance of like going back to Mandalore. So Mandalore was destroyed in the Night of a Thousand Tears, the Purge, as they call it, where the Empire decided to, as Boba Fett would say, where the Empire turned Mandalore into glass. Literally, they bombed it with fusion with nuclear weapons. Really, it's rare we see the depiction of nuclear weapons in Star Wars. It's very, very rare. And also like what they call fusion rays. Then they bombarded this, the planet Mandalore, where it's now basically crystallized. All the major domed cities were destroyed. You have to understand also Mandalore before was devastated by the civil wars between Mandalorians. Basically people who I think more like the zealots of like the Children of the Watch who adhere strictly to the creed, and then the more mainstream Mandalorians who are like Bo-Katan, who remove their helmets, which is more common to see in Star Wars, particularly like from the Clone Wars and Rebels. So most of Mandalore has already been devastated, but they do have a breathable atmosphere. They do have these dome cities that their civilization flourished in, and also their surrounding moons in the Mandalorian system. So including Concordia, which is where Din Djarin says he's from.
Yeah.
Planet Kavala, where Bo-Katan's castle is, and also like the moon of Concord Dawn. Like, so there's a difference between Concord Dawn and Concordia. Concord Dawn is like a planet like that, or a moon that was like, have you ever seen the Clone? You haven't seen Rebels, so you'll see Concord Dawn in Rebels. I don't think you see it in Clone Wars, where it's basically like if you ate most of an apple, because it's been devastated by war, and like to the point where it looks like a carved out apple, like a half-eaten apple. It's a really great visual. If you do an image search on Google, you'll probably see it. But that's another interesting place that's in the Mandalorian system, devastated by the civil wars of the Mandalorians. So that Din Djarin, like when he's telling Grogu, this is our home world. This is like kind of like, people who are like myself, like I'm Korean, like that's my homeland. I grew up there, but there are people who are of Korean descent, like they'd be like born in Canada, born in America, whatever they think of themselves American. But I guarantee, JP, inside all of those people, there is a part of them thinks of Korea as their homeland, or if they're Chinese descent, that China is, their homeland, because that's where their ancestors came from, or where their parents came from, or whatever, right? So I think this is how
we do the same thing very much. I mean, I'm technically, like, I've got an Irish passport. I've never lived in Ireland because I've been brought up, but you're brought up in the diaspora, so there's like that cultural aspect as well. So it feels like this is like, because it's home to everyone within the diaspora, you kind of go with that.
Back to Ireland, right? To Ireland for the first time.
Sorry, you just slightly cut out there, WH.
So like the first time you ever went to Ireland, life, I'm sure it was a big deal for you. Oh my God, this is the place where my father grew up, and like technically, this is my culture is from here.
Oh, it was. It was like,
that's the same for like Din, and like you had in your notes, like you're. No, go ahead. So I think when he's talking to Grogu and he says our homeworld, he is including Grogu. He thinks Grogu is a Mandalorian, because he's part of that culture of foundlings, right? So he's like, when we get to a point, I don't know when it is, but like I think when we talk about the Mandalorian, it's ultimately like, if you think of the Mandalorian as being like the next coming of the Mandalore the Great of Tar Vizsla, or it's Tar Vizsla? Yeah, Tar Vizsla, the guy who is both Mandalorian and Jedi, who united the Mandalorians the first time. I think it's going to be Grogu, because he's both Jedi and he's Mandalorian already, right?
And he's Mandalorian.
He has the Force, right? So, but it begs the question. This is the thing with the Mandalorian that I'm always wondering about. Is like, it begs the question: where are now, especially now, like, where are the Mandalorians in the sequel trilogy? You know, you have to explain like why they aren't fighting against the First Order, because you would think, oh, the Empire's back. Fuck them. We're gonna fuck them up. We're gonna find wherever they are and destroy them. We don't fucking care because we hate them. You would think Mandalorians would have an obscene genetic hatred of anything Empire related.
Yeah, they would be picking a side. They wouldn't suddenly decide to take on a Swiss-style neutrality in all of this and go, no, we're not getting involved. Yeah, it's a really good shout. I mean, before we even got to Mandalore, going into this week's episode, we saw Peli, Amy Sedaris back.
Amy Sedaris, yes.
Who you said before, will be last week's episode, obviously featuring in the trailers as well. Very much overtly on the scam. It appears to be what would be the equivalent over here. It's the Cheltenham Racing Festival, which is very, very big news. And here over there, there's a festival going on in and around Mos Eisley. So there is a Rhodian customer whose speeder's missing a load of hard to find parts. So she was saying about how much it was going to cost and everything else. But she's in a scam with the Jawas who are nicking those as well. So it would take about 5 minutes to put it on there. Who then mark up the price on her, but then she has a soft spot for them. She was dating Jawas, didn't she, at some point?
Yeah,
she
they're
said.
Furry. Apparently they're furry.
Fair enough.
I don't want to know anything more beyond that, to be honest with you.
No, that's exactly where I stand on that one on there. But yes, effectively asked the Jawas to try and get the IG memory unit to hopefully bring IG-11 back on there as well. But we also have she wants to get rid of one of her droids, doesn't she? Onto him on there. Was it R5D4?
That's
on
right.
There. That's it.
One of the most important characters from episode 4.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. I mean, she says built for adventure, but looks incredibly timid throughout the whole thing on there as well. But is saying he's going to be going to Mandalore, and he takes along. He needs a droid there, as we find out after they've taken like the kind of wonderful scenic route. And I have to say, those moments of exposition, going back to it, where he's explaining, filling in the gaps about Mandalore and about Concordia. Like, I think that stuff is just very nicely done, because we have Bo-Katan do it as well later on, sort of filling in.
And the narrative device is Grogu, right? Because he doesn't know this stuff, and Din Djarin wants to educate Grogu about the culture of Mandalore, about the history of Mandalorians. So it's good, and then like Bo-Katan's also like, oh, I have a captive audience here she's taking me back to Din, so I'm gonna to kill time. I think she recognizes that he thinks that Din Djarin thinks of him as Grogu as a Mandalorian. So she's also like, feels like, I'm going to tell you about the history of our people, because she's a proud Mandalorian too, right? In her own way. So I think like if they're just like talking out loud, no. But the fact that they're talking, explaining all this to Grogu, and then by default to the audience is a really good thing. And I think people who don't know as much about the lore of the Mandalorians within Star Wars, it's really good, because like yourself, not everyone has watched Rebels.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something I really need to be getting in on that straight away. Did want to mention as well, we had the first of the Grogu kind of flipping moments. He's become quite adept at this, where he leaps into Peli's arms as well.
Does he say her name? She says, like, he said my name, his first word.
He could do. It wouldn't be surprising. Again, I say this as someone who's an expectant father. It kind of just comes out that way. You kind of read a lot into what babies are saying at various points. But you can certainly see, I would say, within this, there's the kind of less of Grogu as being helpless. That's something that we're not seeing as much of, which we'll get into it in there in a little bit. But obviously, the big kind of set piece is them when you see Mandalore for the first time, post post-destruction that he describes and says it was once green and beautiful back when the songs were written, but now it's just like you say, it's an absolute shell, because effectively it's had various kind of nuclear bombs, and you said fusion rays as well on there. What did you think about it when you first got to see Mandalore?
Well, it's not my first time seeing Mandalore.
Oh no.
Live action, yes. Live action, yes.
Yeah.
But it was I don't know, kind of startling, I suppose, as someone who really liked the Mandalorian episodes of the Clone Wars and in Rebels, that despite it being like devastated by civil war, it still has a thriving civilization within these domed cities. But when we get actually exploring the domed cities, like there's that great shot where he's going into the caves, and then we get a shot like going over his head. The camera goes over his head into like the where the cities are. And it's just like, wow, that looks amazing still, even though it's all been destroyed by the Empire. I think but I contrasted with my memory of like watching the Clone Wars and think, wow, like it's what a tragedy, because I think when you watch the Clone Wars and you see the Mandalorians, things said on Mandalore, you really get a feel of like, it's a very unique, they went out of their way, the production team, to design a really unique setting for the Mandalorian culture, because it doesn't look like any other planet within the Star Wars galaxy, and like the kind of architecture and the kind of way they do their buildings and things like that within the domes is pretty interesting. So
yeah, it really, I mean, it's the first time that Din's been there, isn't it? It's the first time he's had a chance to go there, and like I say, described it to the homeworld of our people, to Grogu before. Obviously, once they get there, we kind of get into the somewhat into the action. I mean, they have to do the smart thing, which is check, is it breathable air? So he sends R5 out to get a sample. They're looking on the scanners, which I can never not think of Alien at various points if I ever see a scanner like this. But then disappears off, which means that Din seals his helmet, tells Grogu to kind of keep himself airtight inside. Goes into the caverns there, and then gets attacked by effectively the Morlocks from H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, which is really what they are, the Alamites.
The Alamites. I as soon as I saw these guys, I was like, oh my god, they're totally referencing the Robert Taylor starred Time Machine. Not the Guy Pearce,
not the Guy Pearce one. No,
the Robert Taylor one, the classic one. And I just like that they definitely went back and said, let's just base it on this for sure. And I thought they were really interesting type of creatures, and it's like but like the surprise to me was when Bo-Katan says, oh no, they're native to this planet, they just live in the wastelands of outside of our dome cities before, but they survived the purge. So that's really like interesting, is this idea of like maybe Mandalorians can return and rebuild these dome cities in the future. Maybe that's kind of like where it's going to be in something inspiring them, because Bo-Katan would constantly say in season 2 is like, yeah, we want to retake Mandalore.
Exactly. And you think to yourself with this sorry, having a little bit of problem with your line there, WH.
Yeah. I think it's just a bad connection.
It is. We're going to be suffering through this one this week, aren't we?
I don't know
on here.
Yes, I think so. I don't. Just so people know, we kind of logged in and logged out of us multiple times. So I think we're just going to have to suffer through this, like as JP says.
We will do. We'll manage to get through it on there. Like I say, I mean, I actually thought the design of the Alamites was quite nice, in the sense they really do look. If you Google H.G. Wells Time Machine Morlock, you pretty much have an image of these guys, and they look like they look like they really should be, in very much the original trilogy of Star Wars. They kind of begot, like, because it feels very much like kind of they're clearly like just very much well designed but realistic suits. There isn't any semblance of kind of CGI. There's like kind of really nice prosthetics going on there as well, which I think is really cool. He attacks and fights them off again with the dark saber. Well, you know, and manages to find R5 as well. Go back to the ship, and they determine that obviously it's breathable. So at that stage, Din and Grogu walk through the kind of civic center looking for the mines, but instead, you know, they find there's a few lizards around the place, you know, which again adds that kind of whole post-apocalyptic feel to Mandalore at that stage on there. And then what he does find, or he does see eventually, is a Beskar helmet, but in fact it's bait. And it's for what looks to be like a kind of large spider / scorpion style structure on there, where you realize the whole thing's being controlled effectively by, and you said it before, like one of the most Doctor Who type villains that you could possibly think of. It is absolutely spot on for Doctor Who.
It looks like a Dalek. You know, if you open up a Dalek, like the armor, and then this is like the kind of like giant eye kind of creature, you know, like that's for me. I thought that's like, holy shit, this thing. First of all, this thing is terrifying. What an amazing design. I was scared. I was like, what the fuck is that? And then I immediately thought it's like a Dalek. This is like a Doctor Who villain come to life. But also you mentioned is like there's like allusions to General Grievous, if you know the history of General Grievous from like the, you know, like a not Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars. There's that, but it's like he's some kind of like vampire, because like he's sucking out Din Djarin's blood. That's what he wants. Is he wants his blood. I thought he wanted the Beskar. Yeah, I thought he wanted the armor, but I'm like, no, he's pumping out his blood. He must be like drinks blood. It's gross.
And it is. It's horrible. And you're thinking this is absolutely horrific in terms of a way to die. Now you kind of would probably assume that this creature's been feeding on alamites for all of that time. However, watching on while all of this has happened in terms of Din Djarin has been Grogu, who has followed along, watched what's happened, managed to kind of come out and uses the Force on the machine to try and kind of rescue him, which manages to wake Din Djarin up, but at the same time alerts the creature back. And his order is get to Bo-Katan. And then he speeds past, you know, whether or not it's the lizard, which does put up a fair fight trying to catch up to them as well, but manages to get up and get past the last Alamite, which again, Grogu using the Force, feeling a lot more comfortable and a lot more control of his powers as well.
Yeah, it reminded me of like, you know, we always have these allusions to the classic Japanese film series Lone Wolf and Cub. And like there's an episode of that film series where Itogami, the father, is injured and his son Daigoro goes out to, you know, nurses him, tries to nurse him back to health any way he can. This Grogu trying to save Din, and then like, you know, getting out there to go get Bo-Katan to help him, just reminded me of like Lone Wolf and Cub. And like when you know when this show does that, you know, like obviously inspired. I think if you ask John Favreau, are you inspired by Lone Wolf and Cub from the 70s Japanese film series? He'd be like, yes, for sure. This relationship is totally like Lone Wolf and Cub. So have you ever seen?
Without getting into spoilers, it's not the only Pedro Pascal starring show that kind of has very much allusions to that as well.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Lone Wolf and Cub?
I haven't. I'm well aware of it, but I haven't seen it.
You'll love it. It's 6 of the like best, like, you know, samurai type films you'll ever see, and like lots of arterial spray too. It's great.
Arterial spray. That's a lovely way of putting it on there. I mean, at this point, it is like at this stage for an episode of The Mandalorian. Like I say, I was watching it again today with a 6-year-old on the sofa next to me, and he found it like he can kind of cope with it because it's the Mandalorian, so he doesn't feel kind of like frightened while watching it. But you can tell that this thing is kind of really creeping him out. And I'm then making faces when it's just like about drawing the blood out because it taps into something that I'm not necessarily mad about. However, going back to the recap, Grogu gets to Kalevala, finds Bo-Katan, who's ready to kick off at Din Djarin turning up and get rid of him once and for all. And then she sees Grogu, at which point works out through her droid where they are and goes to Mandalore to come and save him. And at that stage, comes back, retraces the steps, gives some like really kind of like interesting like I say, plot exposition, but history lessons there as well, describing not only about the Alamites on there as well, talking about the relationship between Mandalorians and the Jedi in there, and manages to get into a big kind of fight scene with the mecha creature, but
also the Alamites beforehand, and she takes care of them.
Oh yeah, takes care of the three Alamites, yeah, pretty swiftly there. But then when she gets through to the, I've written like mechanical spider here. When she gets to fighting the Eye, she finds herself using another weapon of his, the Darksaber.
Yes. And she's much better at wielding the Darksaber than Din is, because she understands how it's used. So, like, if anything, you can watch the like clips of the training session that in Rebels between Kanan and Sabine Wren. So Sabine is is Mandalorian, and she, in an episode of Rebels, she finds the Darksaber that's been abandoned on the planet Dathomir by Darth Maul, because he wins it from Pre Vizsla, played by Jon Favreau in the Clone Wars, and then he rules Mandalore with the Darksaber. But at some point he abandons it on Dathomir, which is the home of the Night Sisters, who are like who are witches. They use the dark side of the Force to be as witches, not as Sith. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself here. But Sabine Wren grabs it and she brings it to Kanan. He's like, this is a lightsaber. This is like da-da-da. This is the dark. And she's like, this is the Darksaber. This is part of our culture. And he trains her how to use it. But she, at first, also like Din Djarin, finds it heavy, hard to use. But he's explaining to her, you are redirecting. And this is a great way to think about lightsabers in general. You are redirecting energy. Why would we think that that's light, that's easy? No, it's like anything is it would have a weight to it. It would require training. So like the idea that lightsabers are like not heavy is kind of like, if you think about it like that, it's emitting energy, power. Like, of course it would probably be heavy. And that's why like the armorer tells Din Djarin in Book of Boba Fett is like, you have to, like, you're fighting yourself. Basically, you're using this because you want to try to conquer this weapon to use it. It's like, no, you have to go with the flow. You have to move with it as like it's part of you. And but because Bo-Katan obviously trained with this thing and understands that idea, and so she wields it very deftly. Like, she's fucking great using the Darksaber.
Oh, she's superb and makes really short work of this as well. Like, completely, like at the point where it's defeating him because it's in one of two bodies is the Eye. It sort of trips to the
so
what you think of the.
She said. He goes to that keep out there.
Oh, sorry, you cut up there. Sorry, I feel bad.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Sorry, slightly cut.
We'll plow through, but
we will.
But
I won't spend too long on pop soup.
I thought that was a good scene. But anyway, there
it is.
Did you see? I sent you the trailer for the Force Unleashed 2, and there is a point there where Star Killer
fights
a droid, And the way he fights that droid, some of the moves I think were like that Bo-Katan uses against this mechanized spider monster thing is stolen from that trailer, because it's like, oh my god, that reminds me of how Starkiller does this against the robot he's fighting, against this and that. So I thought, but hey, why not? Like, that's a great trailer. That's some great fighting in there, choreography in there. Why not steal from great Star Wars sources, even if they're not canon anymore?
And it would make sense for Bo-Katan as a member of the Mandalore royal family as well to have various different types of training in different ways. But I thought it was it was a very good sequence. It kind of showed, again, it's that kind of, it's, you know, if we're going where we think the direction of this is going, and it's going to be like a kind of united Mandalore, or people back on Mandalore as well. It's already been said about not having the dark saber has kind of hurt her credibility before, and then you see the way that she's able to do this, and then she gets Din Djarin, nursing him back to health, making some pog soup, which apparently is very much like fish and chips in Mandalore. It's
Mandalorian Vegemite.
Oh, I'm not mad on Vegemite.
Oh, I went on a rant about Vegemite in the show with Maddie, so just listen to that, how I feel about Vegemite. Anyway.
Save it on there. But yes, at that stage, we're getting to really going to the living waters. And Bo-Katan decides to come along because she says basically you're not going to find your way there. Explaining about, you know, she saw a lot of the sort of Mandalorian kind of infighting as well. You know, including what you said implied about it being caused by the children of the Watch, about how she's been born into the creed, and it's about how, you know, she kind of looks as the rituals as described as theatre for our subjects on there. And, you know, he replies at one point, this is the way, after she tells about her father died defending Mandalore in there, but there's still that hard-bitten kind of cynicism about this, which obviously at some point he's going to come to a real test in the next few minutes on here as well.
I think it is a great scene of them bonding over, like, I think Din Djarin has come to accept that there's more than one way.
Yes.
You know, there's more than just the way of the Mandalore that the children of the Watch follow, that there is the way of Bo-Katan's side of Mandalorian culture where you can show your face, like, but you're still Mandalorian. Like, you know, like her father obviously was a Mandalorian who showed his face, but he died defending their homeworld. So of course Din Djarin is going to honor him the only way the best way he can, by saying that, yeah, what he did, that's the way, that's the creed, that's what he's truly Mandalorian. And what you tell me is in my eyes, I consider him to be a true Mandalorian. I think by default he's extending that to Bo-Katan, is like, you are also Mandalorian. I'm not the armorer. I don't think that you're not Mandalorian. I would venture to say, like, it would be great if we get a scene in the future where he's talking with Boba Fett and he just tells Boba Fett, they might not think you're Mandalorian, but I think you are. You are Mandalorian in my eyes. And like, that would be I really want Boba Fett to come back this season, by the way.
If only to kind of do a bit of, slight rehab on the book of Boba Fett. Really. Yeah, if there's some way of doing that, of getting Tamora Morrison back in there as well. They do find the living waters, which I won't lie, doesn't look great when you look at it. It looks bloody cold as well. There's a plaque nearby where she's talking about the ancient, the location of the living waters, but also the ancient folklore of the Mythosaur lair, which is a reference. I'm going to let you talk about that in a moment, because as she sort of talks through this, he removes his weapons. He starts walking into the waters. At that point, reciting the creed, and then within a few seconds is completely dragged down, which, where you see where he ends up, it must have been at a terrifying speed for him to get all the way down.
Is he dragged down, or he just does not realize that that's a step straight into the deep end? Because that's what I don't think the Mythosaur drags him down. I just think he just doesn't realize that actually
he falls so far, though.
He doesn't have his jetpack. One, he's still recovering from having his blood sucked out, you know.
Yeah.
by the mecha spider. I think he's still recovering because I don't see why the Mythosaur would drag him down and then just leave him. You know, like I could be wrong. Maybe we'll find out that I'm wrong about this. But to me, I just got the impression, oh, he didn't realize that it's this massive drop. Because like if I'm walking there, I didn't think
it's a drop.
It's a shallow pool. Maybe gradually, you know, like as a pool will want to do, like gets deeper. Or if you go to the beach, you slowly, you don't realize. No, it's actually, you know, like 100 meters down straight ahead after 10 steps.
I don't know if I mean, it seemed to be, it might be a staple of the swimming pools that I went to, particularly as a kid, where it would go along 6 foot and then it would just drop to 12'6". There was no kind of slightly going down. It was just like, oh Jesus, yeah.
But and most natural beaches aren't like that, you know. Most natural beaches, you're gradually getting deeper into the water. There's not necessarily always a massive drop in at a beach. I think that's what he was thinking. Oh, it's boom, because she doesn't tell him that. She doesn't tell him that it's just a massive fucking drop down there.
Would have been helpful. Probably more helpful than the information on the plaque. Well, she jumps in there straight after him. Like dives right down, grabs him, and as they're going up to the surface, she sees something, which is a water-dwelling beast that looks a whole lot like the Mythosaur she's just been describing. So
it's like if a Scottish person was swimming in Loch Ness and saw Nessie.
Yeah,
right?
Which clearly is real.
I thought it was great. I wasn't expecting this.
No.
I'm watching this. I'm like, wait, what? Oh shit! It's the Mythos. What? Because then she hightails it out of there. Because also the great scene, like her air bubbles, because she's gasps. She's definitely what she's seeing, and it's like, well, what does it mean? It means like, my God, this creature, like from our myth that we don't even think was real. Maybe they don't even think it's real. It's like. It's still around. And I've seen it. Okay, so in the overall bigger picture of what comes next for not just Din Djarin, but the Mandalorians as a whole, this is a big thing. Like I because obviously she's gonna tell him the Mythosaur is real. It's in the living waters. He's gonna want to go. Well, first of all, he's gonna go tell the armorer, "Hey, bitch, I fucking did my bath. All right, I'm back in the fold." Okay, so and he's probably gonna bring Bo-Katan with him, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
And she'll have the hat off as well. 0 fucks given,
right? And then they're gonna explain, yeah, Mythosaur is real. Galvanize all the Mandalorians. Oh shit, we better go back. So I'm really, really curious to see what this week's episode is going to be about. But also there's a great scene. There's a great moment where, like, when he does say to Bo about her father, he says, this is the way, she just stares at him. Right. And then Grogu's looking at her, and then she says to him, what are you looking at? Like, she's embarrassed. Like by the kind of look she gives to Djarin. You can now tell that there's some kind of attraction building.
Yes.
I don't know if it's from him to her, but definitely from her to him. Because she sees in him like, okay, like, I don't necessarily believe in the ways of your sect of Mandalorian, but there is something appealing about even though she makes fun of him sometimes, there is something appealing to her about how devoted he is to the way of the Mandalore. I think that she's starting to maybe come so against the children about Mandalore.
Oh, well, is he coming back?
Okay, again.
There he is.
I'm still here.
You are. just about.
But yeah, that's a great. I think it's a great. Sorry, it's just a great ending for this episode. So
yeah. Oh, it really was. And I think it sets up a lot of stuff. I mean, like, I'm being glib about the idea of what the evidence he's going to be able to find. Well, this would be some pretty big evidence. This would be the thing to say, actually, in terms of the creature tamed by Mandalore the Great is there. It's obviously, in terms of the significance. I mean, the Beskar helmet is effectively based on the Mythosaur as well. So there is a lot to it. I mean, this feels like this was, that it was thought to be extinct. It's going to be fascinating if we see the Mythosaur in kind of full shape as well, because they're hinting at a size here that's, we're talking Kraken levels. Yeah,
it's
aren't
massive.
we? Yeah, we're talking like proper like Titan level. Yeah, Zilla Beast level.
Zilla Beast level. Oh, just as a quick aside, last week's episode of the Bad Batch, I think you would really love it because not story wise, but like atmosphere wise, it very much felt like John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, well, yeah, you have me at that. That's just anything Carpenter from that. Well, anything Carpenter, most things, up until Prince of Darkness. Well, no, what's the last one? The terrible horror film. It might have been Vampires. The one on Mars. Or was it Ghosts of Mars?
Ghosts of Mars, yeah.
Yeah, it goes into a horrible direction. But no, but that sounds fun. I mean, which is the good thing about these series as well, is it's about the references, and it's about them actually being cine literate as well at the same time. And understanding that they're making kind of genre television, but at the same time, these are things that really like kind of connect to people. It's that if you're going to do kind of sequences, like, why not kind of use the skills and techniques that have been brought on by some of the great directors there, which I thought actually I would have to say is a special shout out to Rachel Morrison on here, because she, like, I think she did it like a hell of a job for this one as well, and sets it up in the direction for this. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on next week? You've seen the trailer for this Wednesday's episode, I'm assuming.
No, I haven't. I
neither have I.
Not to watch the trailers for these things because like I like being surprised, But next week's episode is directed by Lee Isaac Chung, another kind of independent filmmaker, who's got like a lot of like critical acclaim, and it's written by Favreau. And this is one of the co-written ones. It's written by Jon Favreau and someone by the name of Noah Clure. So it'll be interesting what this particular episode is after that coming up. And then after that is a Carl Weathers directed episode, written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Are we going to get Ahsoka reappearing? I hope so.
I think hopefully so. I mean, it sets it up so tantalizingly well for the next few weeks. We still don't know really what the arc is going to be going on, but I mean, I really enjoyed this episode this week. I mean, I've seen like a fair amount of kind of like nitpicking and the like that people bring up, but I think as a half an hour episode of TV to have this kind of level of broad appeal, whilst at the same time having enough kind of nice scares, frankly, in there to kind of be unsettling enough, I'm more than happy with this.
Yeah, I'm again, like my excitement and anticipation level stoked from episode 1 of this season continues through episode 2, and yeah, I can't wait. Like we record this on a Monday right now, and it's 2 more days until we can get it, and I can't wait. I love this feeling of like what's gonna happen.
Hey, this is why everything should be released weekly. It feels so much better. It gives you a nice week to kind of ruminate and get excited about it as well. It's perfect. The idea
only wrestling was like this, JP. Only wrestling was like this for me. Like,
well, we're getting an extra hour of AEW TV apparently. So like, that's what we all needed.
I don't watch the existing 5 hours as it is anyway, so it doesn't matter to me.
Exactly. If only wrestling was like this. It isn't at the moment, and it's. Thank God this is ongoing, as Last of Us has just come to an end, and we don't have Succession until the end of the month as well, which I know that's something that you want to be keeping up on. I
gotta catch up. I have them on my computer. I have like, what is it? 3 seasons so far, right? Of Succession.
Yes. Yeah.
So I feel like I at some point I just have to, once I start it, I'm pretty sure I'll finish it. And then I can call up, Davey Portman and say, "Hey, when you start doing your Succession review shows, I can come on. I'm caught up and I'm keeping up, and then I can do a
Oh
show
yeah,
with Davey, maybe."
and then John and Way as well. Like it is,
John Way,
it's
yeah.
yeah. You're the only member of the Post family who's avoided Succession so far.
Wait, is Braden watching Succession?
I imagine through osmosis, he's had not much choice but
Maybe.
to watch some. There must have been a stage where it's just like, look, you're just gonna. Davey's just said you're gonna sit down and watch this. This is what you're gonna do. But yeah, fantastic episode. That takes us to the end of this week. Apologies for any of the technical glitches that we've had. Damn you, internet. But yeah, where can the good people find you?
Well, I don't know. Whenever Benno listens to the Maddie episode of The Business that I did with him, and then he deems it's legally safe to put onto the Patreon podcast feed to listen for that. Mm-hmm. I will be having some content over at Post Wrestling within the next couple of weeks. One will be a new episode of The Long and Winding Railroad. I won't say who the guest is, what the match is. You just have to follow me on social media to find that information out, because I have not recorded it yet. So it's scheduled to be recorded later this week. So I'll, so I don't like to get ahead of myself just in case things happen. Mm-hmm. But also I will be doing an episode of Post Perez with John Pollock coming up soon. We are going to go to the GCW show in Toronto this Sunday as we record this. And John said, why don't we do that? Why don't we do like things that are happening in Japan? We can talk about the New Japan Cup finals and our live thoughts about GCW. So as a bonus, you will hear my uncensored, unfiltered takes about going to a GCW show live and in person in Toronto with my good friend, John Pollock.
Mate, what's happening to you? We've got the Lucha promotion in Toronto. We'll have the you're going to GCW now at this point. You'll start, before you know it, you're turning up at an International Wrestling Syndicate show or something. I don't know if they're, or whatever. Is that the bullshit Rougeau one? They don't.
No, isn't that the one where like Kevin and Sammy started out of?
All it appears to be is the most pointless fight between two shindy promotions. But GCW were doing a show with them at the weekend, which was like they were doing a joint show there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they should do something with Smash.
In my defense, JP, I would not necessarily go to any GCW show or anything promoted by a person of questionable morality in Brett Lauderdale, unless I was not. Only reason I'm going is because I was given a personal invite by John Pollock, and he said, "WH, do you want to go to this show with me? I would really like to go to the show with you." And I said, "You know what, John? Because you asked me, and I respect you, and I've known you for over 20 years, I will go to this show with you." Normally, honestly, JP, I wouldn't go. If Benno asked me, I might go with Benno just to make fun of him, just to like say, "You like this shit, huh? Huh? This is the kind of bullshit you like, huh?" Because that'd be funny to me, but yeah, because John asked me, I'm going. But like, if it was just like rando friend, "Oh, do you want to go to this thing?" I'd be like, "No, I'm okay. I don't need to get covered in light tubes and shit." So
just be wary that GCW is the show that Gareth went to see them when they were in Liverpool, and he was questioning why did he even like wrestling anymore by the end of it. Is how he felt. He was just like, he said it was he said it was awful, just full of some of the worst wrestling he'd ever seen.
Listen, it's just fodder for me to go on an rant on there. Look forward to,
and that's what
CW just. It's another tick. Why they me? So that's fine with me.
You've ticked that box, and you'll be able to move on quite happily. So you can find me. JPGP, the stuff I've got coming up this week. There's a show we've already got in the can that we're going to be releasing. That we're keeping it slightly under wraps at the moment for it. I'll tell you off air on this one, and then I've got I'm appearing on the must see
long-awaited
matches.
Review of Serbian film. Is that it?
It is. It isn't that. Thank God. I'm waiting for Matty to see that. He says, "Am I going to need a drink after seeing it?" And I was like, "Very much yes." The version I've sent you, mate, the uncut one, absolutely. It's I'm on the Must See Matches project, talking Bret Hart versus Steve Austin at Survivor Series. Survivor Series 96. Bret's big return in that. So that choice comes up and you're like, absolutely, yeah. I'm really looking forward to re-seeing that. We've got Spotlight tomorrow. Christ knows what we'll end up talking about on Tuesday, because not really that much has happened this week. So you're kind of praying that something happens. Otherwise, I don't want to be put in a situation where I'll have to watch Raw for the sake of keeping up numbers. But yeah, takes us to the end of this week. We'll see you next week. And all we've got to say is bye there.
Bye there.